Jack Shuey, Patrick Slater, Rob Smith, Mike Stillman, Doug Strang, Chris Signal, John Walter, Bob White, Jeff Walter, and that is a member of the Central Michigan coaching staff, Mike Rolls-Hornish.
Welcome to Football Letter Live. Tonight we welcome Letterman cornerback Jordan Smith, who started for the 2016 championship team, Big Ten championship team, and longtime former equipment manager and beloved Nittany Lion, Brad Spider Caldwell, will join us. Football Letter Live is member supported, and we're so grateful to have your support. If you're a Penn Stater, you belong in the Alumni Association. And if you love Penn State, you're in the right place. This is Football Letter Live. Well, welcome into Football Letter Live. We have a great show lined up for you tonight. As I mentioned in the open, Jordan Smith is here. Spider Caldwell is joining us. I'm fighting a cough tonight, so I was always going to need the support from the team around me. Let's go ahead and welcome John Petishnock into the show. As always, John, how are you?
Paul, I'm doing great. It's football weather in Happy Valley. We've hit the 50s. It is spring jacket weather, or fall jacket weather, I should say. We're going to have a lot of fun tonight. We said on social media we've got a big time show this week, and we absolutely do. Big Ten champion Jordan Smith is here. Spider is here. I feel like we can just say Spider. Our audience knows who we're talking about. And so, yeah, it's the team's doing well. A lot of energy, a lot of fun tonight. And thanks to everyone for tuning in.
Yeah, Madonna, Cher, Spider. Some people just go by one name.
Yeah, we'll have to. Well, I don't know about. Yeah, you're right. Madonna's share spider. Those three have a lot in common.
Yeah, I was coughing a little bit in the opening, just like we made Central Michigan cough up the ball a couple times and force them into some turnovers. John, impressions from the victory over the Chippewas?
Penn State did what they needed to do. I don't understand this whole like not every win is pretty type of thinking. I think the players and the coaches thought it was plenty pretty. Sean Clifford continues to impress in the face of criticism. It almost seems like it doesn't make sense. He's accounted for 12 touchdowns, only one interception. This is a team that is doing what it takes to win each Saturday. You know, whether they need to score 40 plus, whether they need to clamp down on defense, and so. They got in, they got out, they took care of business. For the most part, I believe, they escaped, anybody getting hurt significantly. And so you see Brendan Strange, he's going to be a problem in the NFL for somebody, or actually for everybody except for the team that drafts him. And so I think the physicality that the offensive line has when you add in the tight ends, that gives them a component on offense that perhaps hasn't always been there to that extent that it's there this year. And this secondary might be the best secondary, I want to say, in the country. And I'm also thinking maybe in recent Penn State history. But as I say that, I'm thinking I'm not the person to talk about that. We've got Jordan Smith coming on and we can get his thoughts on that. And so, but just a ton of talent and a lot of young talent that, for as successful as things are going this year, you can't help but think, when these guys mature in a year or two, how great they're going to be. And we say that knowing they're a top 10 team now as we speak.
With Jordan Smith in the studio, John, those can be some fighting words. So everyone feels like their cornerback core, their defensive back core was the best in school history, right? That's what these reunions are all about. We had the 82 team back to celebrate, again, the reunion of that national championship. A lot of Letterman came back to celebrate. It was great to see so many of those guys that we watched bring home Penn State's first national championship.
Yeah, that was special. And I think Dean divorced it over the PA speaker. There were about 50 guys back from that team. I mean, it took a while to introduce them individually. And so I think, one, it speaks to a couple of things. The connection that they have with one another. It speaks to the connection that they have back to Penn State. I also think that says a lot about the job that Wally Richardson does as the director of the Letterman's Club, our friend Bobby White, who was on that team. I have a sense that he was probably involved in getting a lot of those guys back on campus. And so when you can have 50 guys come back for a 40-year anniversary, that speaks to, I think, certainly it speaks to the power of that team, but it also speaks to the power of Penn State.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know Bobby was out there Friday night with them. They had a nice dinner and reception. And I thought it was a nice touch that Michael Zordich came out of the visiting team's locker room, obviously an assistant coach with Central Michigan, wearing the wrong colors on that day, but certainly able to celebrate with his brothers.
Yeah, that was great. And our buddy Mark Wogenrich, he talked with Zordich leading up to the game, and he thinks, there were probably maybe some guys on the Penn State side who tried to get that recognition to happen during the Central Michigan game. I believe he had coached at Beaver Stadium before. I think he was on the staff at Michigan at one point. And so not the first time he's been back at Beaver Stadium as a visitor, but I feel like anytime he's back in Beaver Stadium, he's a Nittany Lion, no matter what colors he's wearing. And so, yeah, certainly was great to see him come out and get the recognition. And I think when they were introduced, the fans, I mean, certainly they were cheering, but I think they were cheering because they remembered these guys. They remembered watching them play. It's, they're not forgotten. And so to have them back on campus, certainly special moment.
It was also nice to see some of the heroes from the 1986 national championship team that were redshirt freshmen on that 82 national championship team. Of course, Bob White was there, Scott Radisek, Massimo Manca, Shane Conlon, just to name a few of, I think there were 6 or 8 guys who played on both of those teams, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, when I heard Shane Conlon's name for a half second, I thought Shane, and then I thought, yeah, I mean, the redshirt freshman, that was kind of, I mean, of course, back in the, I mean, I don't know if, Spider would know this better than me. I don't know if it was a formal or an informal rule that like Joe would not play freshmen no matter how good they were. And so yeah, there were some guys who played on both of those national championship teams. And so I can only think about the stories that they can tell one another and the connection that they have. And, but again, just awesome to have them back on campus, not only to have them back, but to have that many guys back.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think by the time we got to 82 through 86, I think that rule of, or not that rule, but that practice of not playing freshmen was set to the side. I know that was an early practice, if not a rule at some point where freshmen couldn't play their first year. But yeah, certainly good to see all of those alumni back here in Happy Valley. Well, John, hey, 4-0, headed into the Northwestern game. We have a bye week coming up, and then a big showdown with top 10 Michigan.
Yeah, I mean, I guess as you know, the fans and the media, alumni, we can look ahead. If Penn State can get past Northwestern this weekend, which look, that's not a given. Northwestern is going to come in; they're well coached. Pat Fitzgerald, they have a bye week at probably the best time. They have a critical 3-game stretch. You've got Michigan and Ohio State in the span of 3 weeks, and Minnesota. They pretty much trounced Michigan State last weekend and vaulted them into the rankings. And I think part of me thinks if it not, whether the SEC bias is real or not, you could easily see Minnesota being 10 and a team like Arkansas being 23, 24, and 25. So you could really say Penn State's going to play in 3 weeks in a row, 3 top 10, 12, top 15 teams. And so, but yeah, first Northwestern, and then I think the bye week is going to come at the right time.
Yeah, Michigan has done what they needed to do, right? They've looked good. They look beatable, right? I think we could go into the big house and take care of business. Ohio State looked unbelievable against Wisconsin. I don't know. I know it's a down year for Wisconsin, but again, not looking too far ahead, but Minnesota and Ohio State have looked really good so far this year.
Yeah, and Penn State's looked pretty good so far this year too. And
yes.
those are going to be, those are, for fans of college football, those are going to be great games. You talk about battling those teams. Our first guest, he knows what that's all about. Not just battling them, but beating them. Our first guest tonight, as Paul referenced in the opener, Jordan Smith, starter on the 2016 Big Ten championship team, played in that epic Rose Bowl. Paul, you and I were there. Our producer, Vince Langaro, was there. No matter what the final score was, that was maybe the second best Rose Bowl played in the history of that game, and maybe even in the first. And so for Jordan knows what big time college football is like. He's also an alumni volunteer leader for us, and we're going to get his thoughts on that. We saw him last year in the Washington, D.C. area when we were down there for the game at Maryland. Jordan Smith, welcome to Football Letter Live. We are so thrilled to have you on. How are you doing tonight, sir?
I'm doing well, John. Thanks for having me.
And we're going to tell the audience this. Before we went live, Jordan and Spider, they were just talking nonstop. Those guys, they know one another. They love one another. I think we're going to try to bring Spider on for 1 or 2 questions while Jordan's still in the studio and get them on screen together. And we were talking to you earlier in the week, Jordan, the recruiting message. Bill O'Brien was coaching at Penn State when you committed to Penn State. I thought, Vince and I thought the story that you shared was so wonderful. I was wondering if you could tell that story for our audience and kind of speak to how did Bill O'Brien get you to commit to Penn State and what was the impact of his message?
Sure. Bill O'Brien, great coach, as everyone knows, came from the NFL during that time. But the main message in which that he gave me when he came into my house was, hey, we're going to make sure that you do 3 things: that you graduate, you leave a better man, and that you have a chance to play. And as everyone knows, through the recruiting process, you're told great things. You're told that you're the best thing since sliced bread. But as a grown man coming into my house as an 18-year-old boy, hearing something like that, that's everything that I need to hear in order for me to commit. So Coach OB was a great mentor, was a great coach, one of my best coaches in which that I would say that I ever had. So just hearing that from him was everything I needed to commit to Penn State.
All right, John brought it up in the open, calling our current crop of defensive backs perhaps the best in the history of Penn State football. I think Grant Haley, Jordan Smith, Marcus Allen, and some of those other guys might have an argument.
We had some boys on that team. We had Grant Haley, Nick Scott, Troy Apke, Malik Golden, Marcus Allen, Christian Campbell, John Reed. The list goes on, man. And some of those guys are still balling, doing their thing, man. So, but this team here, that they're awesome. They have some grit, they have some toughness to them, and they have some swagger about themselves as well. In which that's what you need to play defensive back. You're on that runway. You're a top model, so you have to walk down that runway and be able to hold your own on that island. And those boys are definitely living up to the challenge and competing every week.
Well, you know what it's like to be on that island, right? I mean, people don't quite understand what Joey Porter goes through, right? I mean, Joey Porter, what, John, in the first game, targeted 9 times. Most of those were mistakes. I'm not sure why Purdue continued to target him. And yet, when you're targeted as much as that, you give up a play every once in a while. What's the mindset of the defensive back to have that short memory and to kind of forget what just happened?
Oh, it's always a next play mentality. Always got to be where your feet are, remain present, and know, hey, well, if this play happens on play 49 and there's 50 plays total, well, that 50th play could be the play. So Joey Porter, he's doing his thing, man. He's ready to go. He seems like he's already tuned in and always focused into the games each and every week. So he's going to get targeted, man, and everyone else is going to get targeted, but those boys, they step up to the challenge and they love to compete. So, that cut those boys some slack and competition. Hey, those people, they're meant to play. They're meant to be out on the field as well. But our boys, man, they're stepping up to the plate every time and they're ready to rock and they're ready to roll. So.
Jordan, you talk about competing, you talk about grit, having that next play mentality. How much of those qualities apply to that 2016 team that you started on, won the Big Ten, went to the Rose Bowl? How many of those qualities kind of apply to you? And beyond that, what elevated that team to a championship level?
Yeah, I would say really the effort. We always pride ourselves in effort, giving maximum effort. And we were close. We were a close-knit team, man. We always hung out. We always were around each other and always trying to find ways in which to get better. So that 2016 team in which we won the Big Ten championship and played in the Rose Bowl, we made sure in which that we took care of the little things so that they didn't become big things. We wanted to make sure that we paid attention to the finite details and performed to the best of our ability so that all of us can be on the same page. One person take care of their job so the whole team can take care of what our accomplished mission was, which was to go out and win a Big Ten championship.
Yeah, let's go back to earlier in that season, though, right? Everyone remembers the Ohio State game. They remember the Big Ten championship. They remember the unbelievable Rose Bowl game, which still, I have to remind myself that we lost that game because look, we competed. I thought we played fantastic. It was such an entertaining game, but just came up. We ran out of time, as some coaches will say, in that one. But you start 2-2, right? And just went up to the big house and had a rough showing up in the big house. How did that team turn it around? What was the mindset after Michigan to say we still believe we can be Big Ten champions despite what some of our recent play has shown?
The mindset is always you never count yourself out. You always believe in yourself. You always have confidence in yourself because you never know when that moment is going to click, and you never know when things are going to turn a corner. So that team there, man, we just always had the mindset of hey, well, our back is already against the wall. We can't lose. The only thing in which that we can do is to continue to grow together, get better together, and go out swinging. So that team right there, those were the qualities in which that we pride ourselves in. And I see some of the same qualities within this team as well. This team, they're confident within themselves. As I mentioned earlier, they have that swagger, and that you can see it. It's rubbing off on the entire team. So as long as they continue to have that and they continue to stay close and stay a close-knit team, it's looking pretty good this season.
John, we're showing the highlights from Jordan Smith, a lot of them from the 2016 season, a lot of them from that Minnesota game, which I think a lot of us who followed the team closely point back to that game as really the turning point of the season. Certainly the Ohio State game was huge and memorable, but the team climbed a mountain against Minnesota with the overtime victory there. And I'm watching these highlights again, and Jordan Smith was a lockdown corner that day.
Appreciate it, Paul. I appreciate that, man.
Looking at, and some of these highlights that we're looking at are from the Big Ten championship in Indianapolis. For the final 35 minutes of that game, Jordan, you keep Wisconsin out of the end zone. You limit them to only 3 points, leading to that comeback. I remember being on the field right after that game, Mike Gesicki going up to James Franklin and saying, "We earned this. We earned this. Nobody gave us this." How much of that kind of, mentality played into that team's play, in that, it didn't matter how many points you were down. It didn't matter what other people thought. Like, within that locker room, within that team, you felt like you were going to come out on top no matter what it was.
Of course, you always gotta. Yeah, as I said earlier, man, you always gotta believe in yourself. You'll never find someone else that will believe in you as much as you believe in yourself. So you got to have that dog mentality. You got to be willing to fight for everything in which that you want, and let the chips fall where they may. There's no gamble or there's no risk betting on yourself. You can you're everything in which that you can accomplish, just taking a chance on yourself, So the team we have now, man, they have that. And it's so exciting, especially like being on the sidelines and watching those boys get hyped, get pumped up, and having that swagger, man. It makes me want to go out there and play sometimes too. I don't have any more eligible.
Jordan, you were in the studio watching the opening videos. You saw the 82 national championship team. I know we're talking a lot about specific games here and those moments, but I know we hear from Letterman week after week who come on here about the tight-knit bonds that they have with their fellow Lettermen. I know you talked with Spider about catching up with some of your former teammates when you're here for the Northwestern game. Talk about what those relationships mean to you now as a Penn State grad.
These are the guys that I've sweated with, blood, sweat, tears. Man, we went through the fire. We went through the ringer. Those winter workouts weren't easy. Training camp wasn't easy, and the season wasn't easy, man. So these are lifelong relationships in which that we have established. Just being a part of those teams, but these are lifelong relationships in which that we established just going to a school such as Penn State. Not only do we have that within inside our own sports respective teams, but we have that within the alumni association as well. So being able to rely on that and to provide value to those relationships and leverage those relationships in order for us to grow and continue to move forward and be better versions of ourselves, man. It's incredible to have 100,000 fans, but it's even incredible to have 100,000 alumni in which that you can leverage and reach out to with anything in which that you ever need.
Jordan, that's so well said, and it leads in perfectly to our next question, talking about your involvement with the alumni network in the Washington, D.C. area. As I said, we ran into you last year when we were in town for the Maryland game. If you don't mind, can you share kind of like what inspires you to give back, and how did you get involved with the alumni network in D.C.?
Yeah, so when it came to the alumni network, I went on LinkedIn and just said, hey, there's more in which that I can do. Penn State has done so much for me. Well, there's things in which that I can do for Penn State, and there's things in which that I can do for the people of Penn State, right? So went on LinkedIn and I just started connecting with everyone within the DC area that's on LinkedIn, and also decided to go to a couple of alumni chapter events in DC as well to establish those relationships, to leverage those relationships, to be able to say, hey, well, let's make a common connection. What are you looking for in life? What are the things in which that you need? Because the thing is, the world is yes, it's about what you know, but it's also about who you know. And if the people in which who I know went to the same school as me and is also in the same area, I'm definitely going to leverage those people. I'm definitely going to reach out to those people as well. So just being a part of the alumni chapter, I encourage everyone to. If you played a sport, or even if you didn't play a sport, you will meet so many great people within the alumni chapters, and you will meet so many people that are so willing to help you get to the places in which that you want to get to in life, whether that's professionally, whether that is socially, whether that is just emotionally and physically as well. So definitely leverage your alumni chapters within your area and get involved and have an impact on the next group that's coming out, because they need our helps more than anyone else.
Wow, it sounds that leads right into my next question. I mean, when you talk about making an impact, right? Sandy Barber used to talk about preparing student athletes for a lifetime of impact. Of course, Joe Paterno would always talk about getting out and making an impact on others. What are some of those lessons that you took out of Penn State when you start hearing the voice in your head, right? And you start hearing like the coaches and some of these lessons, right? What are some of those lessons that you hear from Bill O'Brien and James Franklin?
So again, from Coach OB, the lessons that I hear is, hey man, like, do your job, be present. I don't care what you did last night. I don't care what you did early in the morning. When it's practice, it's practice. So that applies to work. That applies to anything in which that is your work, right? And Coach Franklin had 4 core values that still resonate with me today. Compete in everything you do. You must have a positive attitude. You must be willing to sacrifice, right? So and you must have a outstanding work ethic. So those things right there, they still resonate with me today. Coaching kids, giving back to kids, I make sure that those core values that were instilled in me during those times are also instilled in the kids that I coach, or just friends or friendships. It's a competitive world in which that we live in, right? And nothing is ever going to be given to you. So you have to be willing to work for everything that you do. You have to be willing to make sacrifices. You have to be willing to do the things in which that are uncomfortable for you to become comfortable. So those are a couple of things in which that Coach Franklin and Coach O'Brien have also instilled in me outside of my parents. You know, so my coaches were my parents when I was at school, but my parents also did a wonderful job of raising me and preaching these values into me and these lessons as well.
That's amazing. It's a family show. We appreciate you cleaning up some of Bill O'Brien's words of wisdom that he passed on to you. So yeah, that's amazing. I know we all hear our mentors in our ears for the rest of our lives.
For sure.
Jordan, you talked about kind of like the family aspect of Penn State. James Franklin talks all the time about wanting to keep Letterman involved with the program, getting them back on campus at games, talking with the current team. You know, how much does that mean, knowing that the coach that you played for at Penn State, you know, even after you graduate and you go on and do other things with your career, that he wants you back for personal and professional reasons, and still wants you part of this program?
It means a lot. It really does. And one thing in which that Coach Franklin did off the field also that was great was he had alumni days in which the alumni they would come set up a job fair for us and the team. We would meet with the alumni, and we would talk about the different jobs and career fields in which they were in, and see if that interests us. And I think that's incredible, because one thing in which I think is extremely helpful is having a mentor, or having someone that's already been through it kind of guide you through the process as you begin to transition out of college football or sports in general, right? Or just in any transitional period in life, just having someone that is able to be a sounding board and being able to listen to exactly what you're going through and give you advice as far as, hey, well, this is how you could navigate these waters. This is how you could be better here, or you're doing amazing here, and this is what you should be looking for next. So it's you always need that person, or that big brother, that big sister, that uncle, that aunt, that mom, dad, that mentor, in which that can help you get to where you got to go, but then also make the road a little bit easier. That's our jobs in life. Our job in life is to share their experiences in which that we've been through, so that the next generation have an easier time navigating the waters of life, because life isn't going to get easier. You only get stronger through life.
Jordan, we talked a little bit offline about the upgrades to the facilities. We've talked a little bit about how college football has changed. So a fun question for you here. If Jordan Smith was playing today, what NIL deal would he cut? Is it the Bradley's cheesesteaks? Is it the waffle shop? Maybe the wings at Dark Horse? Who would be sponsoring you?
You know, I would probably say either Permani Bros or Naked Egg in State College. I would definitely have had that. I was always there. Or even Bagel Crust. It would have been something for sure, though.
That's a good call. That's a good call. I can see the ads now. Bagel crust, right? With like the big zero of which Jordan Smith held the opposing receivers to.
And Bagel Crust, if you're out there listening now, hey, I may not have any eligibility, but I'll still take an endorsement.
Why don't you know what? We had such good interaction with you and Spider. Why don't we bring Spider on to the show? And just we're just going to sit back and watch a little bit here with you two catching up. Spider Caldwell, how are you?
Real good, Paul. I don't know how I can follow this. I mean, I tell you, seriously, man, I'm like wanting to cry just seeing this. I remember him coming through with Stephon Morris, his good childhood friend, and when we on his recruiting visit, and like he was a little kid, and now he's like a grown man. I mean, I'm proud of you, man. You're awesome. It was a great interview, and just so like I said, just so proud of you. And you know, and that's something my wife and I didn't have any children. You know, we couldn't have any kids, but I was so blessed to have these guys. These were my guys, and I love them, and I got a lot of kids. I got a lot of them, and between football players and managers, and I was really special. But just hearing you talk, buddy, I tell you what, I'll beg to differ with John too. You know, talking about this secondary we have right now being one of the best or the best ever. No. You guys were definitely ballers.
What team you think, Spider?
What's that?
So what team do you think is up there?
Oh, you mean as in
defensive backs?
As in the defensive backs? Well, I tell you, I'm. You guys are right there. We had a pretty special group in '86. Okay, the '86 national championship team. Those guys, those DBs were actually called the Smurfs.
The Smurfs.
That was their nickname, the Smurfs. Okay, we had Duffy Cobbs, Ray Isom was our safety, Eddie Johnson, and Marcus Henderson. I tell you, they were small, but you watch the '86 national championship game, and you'll see Michael Irvin. He had alligator arms by the end of that game. He was afraid to catch the ball, buddy. So those guys could bring the wood. But I tell you what, no, you guys. I mean, you went down that list of guys you all played with. I'm like, man, there's some good dudes there, man.
So yeah, those dudes, they're still playing too.
I know. That's what I mean. There's some good players there. So, Porter and those guys have a lot to live up to, man. I'm telling you.
Jordan, what's your favorite memory of Spider and just the relationship they were able to build with him?
Spider, I'm not sure if you remember this, but I don't. I hope I don't get in trouble. But I don't think that you were supposed to give out any more cleats. And I came to you by myself, and I was like, "Hey, Spider, I really just don't like these cleats. Do you think I could trade these out?" He's like, "Jordan, I really don't want to give you these new cleats, but all right, man, just keep it between us." I was like, "Okay, cool."
No worries, buddy. No worries.
Spider always took care of me, man. Spider always took care of me.
Yeah, it was a blast. Like I said, you guys, it really made it special. And like I said, we had a lot of fun. And I tell you too, everybody, I appreciate. I was on the sideline for 31 years, and I had a lot of special memories, a lot of unbelievable games. But I'm telling you, the 2012 and 13 guys, I felt like I always said, I wasn't there for them. I felt like, sometimes that, we got to hold this together. The team, we're going through some really trials right now, but I was wrong. They held me together. I was the one that was a mess, and like mentally and just, and not knowing the future and just to know that, those guys stuck together as a unit and guys like Jordan that still came here with so many unknowns. We had no bowl game to go to. We had, nothing to look. They were only playing for themselves and each other. And that was, those were two of actually more of the funnest years I've had as equipment manager. Because of the bond that they had as young men. And like I said, we had a blast. I mean, we went out and played for ourselves, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, like I said, so.
Do you remember the first winter workout that we had? It was outside, and we had the paintball sweatsuit on, and everyone came back, and our hands were frozen.
Fitzy, he was a maniac. our strength coach was a nut, and we were outside. I know. I couldn't believe they wanted to go outside in the winter. I mean, go turf. I mean, we were out there. My student manager out there with shovels shoveling off the turf 6 o'clock in the morning to have this stupid workout. I'm like, why are we in a lube? But we got an indoor building, But Bill O'Brien was like, oh, hey, I'm from New England. We're tough. We don't use indoor buildings. So yeah, there were some great classic memories there, buddy.
Yeah, we learned very quickly when we had the run through with Jordan earlier this week. We just said, hey, we're going to have Spider on earlier in the week. Like, did you guys cross paths at all, or do you know him well? And Jordan's face just totally lit up, big time smile. And he just started, just saying about the impact that he had on you. And just as a point of clarification, I caught myself. I said, this year's team is one of the best, not the best, one of the best. And so I instantly thought about that 2016 team and Spider, you're so right. Stats and metrics aside, what those guys did in 2012 and 2013, they surpass anything you find in a box score. And so, Jordan, so appreciate having you on tonight. And, you and Spider, I think you guys are the perfect example of what makes Penn State football so special. And so, Jordan Smith, we're going to have you back on. We look forward to seeing you when we're in the DC area, and you got to let us know when you're coming into town. Like, we got to grab lunch or catch up a little bit more then, if you're okay with that.
Definitely. I definitely will. I appreciate you all having me. John, Paul, thank you. Spider, I love you, man. I can't wait to see you again.
See you Saturday. I want my hug on Saturday, buddy.
Guys,
see you.
Take care, Jordan.
Thanks, Jordan.
All right, thank you all.
Bye-bye, buddy.
All right. Well, John Spider Caldwell is here with us. I will give him an introduction, although he certainly doesn't need one. You heard him say served 31 years on the sidelines for Penn State football as equipment manager, as a student manager in '83, was part of that '86 national championship team. He's been featured on ESPN's College Game Day. And if you follow Penn State football, right, he's an icon. You know how important he has been to this program over the years. He's currently the assistant director of clubs and suites here at Penn State. Spider Caldwell, welcome to Football Letter Live.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Paul. I don't know if I deserve all that, but it's especially the comment earlier, John, with the Cher and there's Madonna and Spider, right? Anyway, but no, thank you very much. That was very kind.
So Spider, I guess, because, you just had on, obviously we saw the connection that you have with Jordan. Just want to ask you first, how much of your job or, how much of your passion and your role with Penn State football went beyond kind of the technicalities, the logistics, and went to being like a sounding board for these guys, moving away from home for probably the first time and, dealing with Joe and the football program and trying to grow up and be men. How much of your job kind of went into that area that you were just there for them as a friend and someone to listen to?
Oh, that was, and that's probably one of the things I missed the most. We really, you bonded with these guys, and you knew they were the only ones that, you're their parents away from home, and they didn't go to the coaches for their problems. They went to, they came to us, and they had any issues, they had problems in class, we were the ones that they wanted to, talk to. And I mean, it was just, and I remember Kajana Carter, he's here getting his helmet fitted, and his mother was there the day we were fitting his helmet as a true freshman. And she's like, in my ear, you take care of my boy. Don't you do if you need something, you make sure you do the right thing for them. And it's like, yes, dear. Okay, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So you really, and the players used to call me the mother hen, and because I was always on them about keeping their lockers neat and make your mother. I always tell them, make your mothers proud. Make your mothers proud. So, but no, again, John, that's probably one of the things I miss the most is not having the, not being around them and being being a mentor. I remember John Urschel. He used to like to come in and sit, and he would play chess with one of our student managers. Actually, it was Tom Venerino's son, Chris, was one of my student managers, and they'd play chess all the time in the equipment room. So and of course, Chris would lose all the time, of course. But, anyway,
Spider. Let me say this. I have a guy who's a friend of mine, right? I call him my best friend. And then one day I realized there's probably 10 or 15 other people in his life that describe him the same way as their best friend. In your situation, you probably have hundreds of people that, if not close to thousands of players who've come through this program who say Spider's my guy, right? Jordan said that earlier. How does that make you feel to know that you've been able to have an impact on all of those Letterman's lives?
Yeah, it's very humbling. It really is. You just wonder, again, you just don't realize the impact you have, and it's very, very special. It makes it very humbling to be that, to be recognized like that. I had, and again, I told you, like I said earlier, I didn't have any kids, and I, these were my, I looked at them as kids, my, and wanted to take them to personally, like, they were one of mine, and it's just, and I think they felt that, I felt like, I had student managers that they call me dad today. I mean, even so, it's just, but no, it's very humbling when they come back. It's like they want to, been here so long. I guess I'm the connection to the past to them, and
right.
They recognize me and they see me, and they're just so excited to, to reminisce and talk and no, it's tough. Sometimes on a game day here, it's like I can't get any of my work done because the guys are wanting to talk so much. So, but no, it really, that's one of the most special things for me about being being still here. It's great. Thank you.
Well, Spider, you've been part of a lot of special teams. I've seen a lot of special players come through the program, a lot of special student athletes, I should say. We're just going to go through kind of a little bit of a list here, and basically you can kind of share like what you think made that team memorable, or some special stories. We were going over that earlier this week. So we'll start with the 86 championship team, 87 Fiesta Bowl. What about that team and that game stand out to you?
Wow. I that's still, I mean, to me personally, that's probably, I'm a little bit biased. That was my senior year as a student manager, but that was probably the most special year that I've ever been part of personally. And to climax it with that win at in the Fiesta Bowl, and how we won it, and the whole Miami, good versus bad thing. And it was just, but that whole team, you talk about a complete team. To me, and being part of 31 different teams through the years, that team that whole season started January 2nd. When we lost to the Orange Bowl in 1985,
right?
Those fifth-year seniors, the Bob Whites, the Shane Conlons, the Massimo Mancas, the Chris Collins, they basically the next day after that game, they went to and knocked on Joe's hotel room door at the Orange Bowl, the Fontainebleau Hilton, and said, "Coach, we just want you to know we're coming back next year because we're not going to let this happen again," for their fifth year. And that team was literally on a mission since January 2nd to get back there and win it. And they did it. And that's what's amazing. And Joe, I remember the speech after the game, okay, in the Orange Bowl at the locker room. Joe got up on a chair and he said, "Listen, guys, okay, we got licked. We got beat by a better team today. All right. But don't forget this. Don't forget it. And you can make it right." So then, literally in the locker room before the game against Miami in the Fiesta Bowl, Joe's back up on the chair. "Guys, it was 1 year and 1 day ago. We were in the same position. Okay. We said we're going to get back here. We did it. Let's what we got to do. Let's don't let it slip away this time." And it's just that was just, it just gave you goosebumps. And that team, like I said, you go to bowl games, you're always, there's a lot of functions they do and different things you go to, and they have lined up for both teams to do and go have fun. And bowl games are great. We have a blast at them. That's the only bowl game of my 23 bowl games I've been to that I didn't care. Nobody cared about any function, anything we were going to. All we could think about was the football game. And, the media hype around that thing was just incredible. It was like the Super Bowl. and every day just media hounded. But that's all you could think about was going to that game and getting it done. And then the atmosphere out on the field with the Phil Collins music, and it was just like it was surreal, and still one of the greatest memories of my career.
I think still the all-time highest rated college football game ever to air on television. Spider, talk about the 94 team. I'll fan some flames here. Arguably the best team in Penn State football history not to win a national championship. I know we have a handful of others, but that team was special.
It was. And that team was the remarkable thing about that. I remember when we beat Minnesota, the first game that year of Minnesota, we crushed them. Okay. I remember the coaches, we were shaking hands with the other team. I remember some of their coaches shaking hands with our coaches. And they said, we knew exactly what you guys were going to run, and we couldn't stop it. I mean, that's the team from that first game of the season. It was so many, those guys, it was 11 guys doing exactly what they were supposed to do on every single play to perfection. And I mean, and they did. And it wasn't like, how are we going to score? When are we going to score? How long? It was, when are we going to score? How fast? And how are we going to, and that, I mean, our average scoring drive that year was 2 minutes and 12 seconds. And it was one of those things. And I had my one student manager, Kirk Deal, who we all know, and he's, the director of the Varsity S Club. And he was a student manager for me at that time, and then became my assistant for a year, and still, here today. Kirk was a student manager and worked with the running backs, and he got to know all the plays. Kirk's a very smart kid, and he actually knew all the plays. So during the game, he would always come up to me and go, "Watch this play. It's going to Bobby. Wait till you see Kyle Brady on this one." And he knew, and sure enough, it was just boom, boom, boom. Just the fluency of that football team was amazing. And and what a shame. I'll never forget, that game. I think the Miami Nebraska game was the night before. We were at Snack, and we were watching that game. The players had just watched that game, and it came down to the Snack before we went to bed, and Joe would give a speech, and Miami and Nebraska won. And they're already, I think the announcers were already declaring them national champions. We hadn't even played our game yet, and there was like Debbie Downer in the hotel, that at Snack that night. And, Joe said, "Hey, nothing to do about it. Let's go out there. And, we just got to do our business, take care of our business, and we'll let things fall where they may." But, which we did. We went out in the first play of the game, Kajana gone, so, that was a travesty.
Shout out to Kirk Deal, a member of the Football Letter Live Hall of Fame and a friend of the program. Here we see Hey Diddle Diddle, Kajana up the middle to open the Rose Bowl victory over the Ducks from Oregon.
Yep. Oh, that was great. I have that picture on my wall behind me here. I think it's right there, right down low here. Mm-hmm. Yep. See it behind me? Yep. That was the first play of the game. That was a heck of a memory there, I tell you. That game too, I have to tell you a little inside scoop here. You remember the Illinois game? And
right.
We had to come back in the final drive to win that game. Well, I'll put a little plug in for Kirk and I in that game. We had, that was an artificial turf, and they punted the ball to us,
right.
And we got the ball on like the 4-yard line, and we had 96 yards to go with 4 minutes left in the game, and it started raining. It hadn't rained the whole game, and it started raining. So we had these big racks that we had behind the bench that had all the extra shoes hanging on. The AstroTurf games were actually worse than grass games. We had to take there's 3 different kinds of shoes for AstroTurf. And we had these shoes called the Destroyers, and they had these little rubber nubbies on them that we'd use when it was really pouring rain. And so a lot of guys were starting to want to change their shoes to those. So we're literally cutting shoestrings right in the middle on the bench, and then slipping these shoes on, getting them off the rack. And some guys were out there didn't have those shoes on yet when it started raining more. And so we're driving down the field. So as guys are coming off the field, we're cutting shoestrings right on the sideline, putting their other shoes on, and back out they go. And I remember Kenny Jackson come over and he's yelling, "Get those shoes on the linemen or on the wide receivers." And I'm like, "Kenny," I was putting them on some linemen at the time, and I said, "Kenny, if these linemen don't block, they won't be able to get the ball to the receivers." We're on. Joe comes over, "Calm down, everybody, calm down." and said, let him do his job. Again, he told Kenny Jackson, let him do his job. So anyway, we were getting guys out there. So we got to about midfield, and we had everybody that needed to be in those shoes on, and the rest is history. We went down and scored. So I'd like to feel like we as equipment managers had a little part in that the drive, as they call it.
Step aside, Kerry Collins. Kerry Collins had nothing to do with that. It was Spider and Kirk.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's not a little part of that. You guys had a big part of that, and so yeah, absolutely. Thanks for sharing that story, Spider.
Yes.
So one moment that I feel like transcends football, maybe even transcends sports. 2001 season opener, Adam Talaferro walking out of the tunnel, jogging. What was it like to be in the stadium that night?
Crying. It was like, because all I could think of, I reflected back on when we land. I'll never forget this. After Adam gets hurt, he's at Ohio State. We leave him. Team flies back, and they're getting the news on the plane that it's not good. So we didn't hear it. Now that's the coaches were huddling up there, and the doctors and stuff, and on the plane. So we land, and Joe said, "Hey, when we get back to Lash, everybody stay. I wanted everybody had come in the locker room. Don't go back to your apartments yet." So we go in the locker room, and we gather in the middle of the locker room. And that's when we had the big S in the middle of the floor. And he said, "Listen, guys," he said, "everybody gather around the S." He said, "The situation with Adam is not good, and he needs all our prayers that we can give him. And it's going to be tuck and go, and we're just not sure what's going to happen. So, and we need to pray for this kid." So we literally, the whole team got down around the S in the locker room, and we prayed for Adam. And it was just emotional. Everybody was just bawling their eyes out, and I'll never forget that. And to see him a year later run out of the tunnel, it's just, I'm getting emotional thinking about it. It was surreal, and it was really special for us that we're there. And when he could have been, thought he was never gonna, not even sure he's gonna, ever walk again. So it is super. He's such a good person too. Oh man, such a good person, and so proud of him.
Has gone on to some amazing things, has served on the university's board of trustees, got his law degree, has served in the State House in New Jersey, and is a wonderful friend of the Penn State Alumni Association. But we all remember that night when number 43 came out of the tunnel.
And he wasn't supposed to run here. He said his adrenaline was bumping, and he said, like, that's the first I ever ran since his rehab. And so that's just amazing.
Spider, the 2005 team was a special team coming off a number of down years. They play in the 2006 Orange Bowl. They play well after everybody's bedtime that night. What stands out to you about that season and about that Orange Bowl game?
Yeah, that's well, what stands out about that season is getting screwed at Michigan. that whole debacle there when but no, I mean, that was, I tell you, that those were those team captains. I tell you, M-Rob, Puz and Z, Zamitis, Alan Zamitis, what great leadership they were. I mean, they really, with Derek Williams in the mix, and I said they really took a leadership role and just carried that team on their shoulders and made those guys better, everybody around them better. And to this day, just M-Rob was a smart kid and just such a great, like I said, such a great leader. They was and just coming off those rough years in 2000, 2001, 3 and 4. And they never given up on it, and those guys like Justin King and Derek Williams and them coming to Penn State and making taking the risk. I mean, it was a great year. I mean, the Northwestern, we had a big win there and that year. So, but no, we could have been undefeated. I mean, like I said, we could had some different officiating at Michigan. Don't get me started. Anyway, but no, and then Orange Bowl. I mean, I'll never forget. I'll tell you a little inside thing. What's funny with that, the Orange Bowl. So, I'm having a mental block here. Kicker. Oh my word, isn't that terrible? I couldn't keep thinking Zach Mills. Kevin Mills.
It was Kevin.
Oh, that's terrible. I apologize to him. When he goes up to make the kick, okay.
Kevin Kelly.
Kevin Kelly. I'm sorry.
Kevin Kelly.
I had Kevin Mills in my head. I don't know why I was thinking 2003 and 4. So Kevin Kelly goes up to take the kick. In overtime, the first kick, we're like, hey, come on, Kevin, you got it, buddy, you got it. We're encouraging him. Remember, he's a true freshman, okay, kicker. And Kevin's like barely taller than I am, and so he goes out and he, misses it. We're like, oh, okay, come on, we're patting him on the back. Oh, it's okay. Don't worry about it. We're gonna need you again. We're gonna need you again. So, sure enough, he gets the opportunity again. Goes out for that second kick. Come on, Kevin, you got it, buddy. You got it this time. Oh, he misses again. We're like, oh no. So we're like, oh, that's right, Kevin. Come on, we need you next time. So the third time, we're like literally on the sideline, we're like, you better make this, you son of a gun, or you're dead. I mean, we literally it was like tough love. We were like growling him to make, you better make this. And we're like yelling at him. And then sure enough, he got it. We're like, so, and like I said, I'll never forget, we thought that game ended like 3 times. And I got back to the hotel. So funny. I literally got back to my hotel room at 5:00 in the morning from loading the truck and getting it cleaned up. And there's the USA Today newspaper at my laying on the floor in front of my hotel room with Joe and Michael Robinson, them holding the trophy up, the Orange Bowl trophy. I'm like, oh my word, the newspaper beat me back to my room. I'm still working. So it was, I'll never get that thing. That was the craziest game.
Spider, you mentioned 3 guys who very special to the program on that team: Michael Robinson, Paul Posluszny, Alan Zamaitis. We threw out a photo of the 3 of them on social media a couple years ago, and fans went crazy just talking about what it was like to watch them play and how much they meant to the program. Yeah. What did you see behind the scenes that, maybe, that only you maybe saw behind the scenes, that like, what told you that these 3 guys were not just great, but special in a way that, you don't see all the time?
Well, they command the locker room. I mean, and I mean by that, the respect. I mean, they just, when they spoke, people listened. I mean, like, it's kind of like, there's been other guys, like Shane Conlon was that way. There was just different guys that like, just when they talked to the locker room, you listened, you respected them. They were so respected by all their other peers on that team. And, they were truly like coaches themselves, and I will tell you a funny story, and it has to do with those 3, and it's kind of a Jopa story. And it's, I'll make a long story short, but that's the year we changed helmet manufacturers. Okay, we went with that's called the Shut DNA helmet, and it was very new at the time. It had new technology in it that was a special foam inside it that was had been tested and really done well in some of the testing, and it was like the Navy SEALs would use this material. It's called Skydex foam. They would use this material on their boats, like this frogmen would jump out of it, and because it could take salt water without decaying. Like regular foam inside helmets will break down with your sweat and stuff. It could be rained on. It had cushion. Anyway, so this padding was adapted to a helmet. So we liked the technology. We researched it, so we thought we were going to go with it. So we made the whole team wear this DNA helmets those year. Well, they were a little bit different at the time. They were a bigger helmet. They kind of looked like guys called them, I feel like a bucket head. I'm wearing a bucket. But they, we were transitioning the whole team, and, some of the guys were really happy with it. So that's what they want. Our training staff, Coach Paterno, they all decided this is what we want. So I got everybody in them except the 3 captains. Those 3 guys were the last guys to hold out. And they're like, we're going to talk to Joe. We don't want that. We don't want to talk to Joe. So I got, that's whatever, you let me know. I got the other helmets back and we can go back to the old ones. So sure enough, they go up to Joe's office. 2 minutes later, they're back down. All right, Spider, go ahead and fit us. Time for the helmet. We didn't win the argument. So I'm like, so I put the helmets on, and anyway, and everything went fine. We got used to it. They got used to it. And I remember that's the year that Michael Robinson had that huge hit on the Minnesota corner, where he launched him out into that kid ended his football career. I think. It was a nasty hit, but he and he hit the kid right in the front, right in our bench on the sideline, and just launched the kid. And everybody on the sideline was like, and Michael just gets up like nothing happened, and everybody's like, yeah, Spider, look at those helmets. Yeah, it's all because he did it. It was because they're all cheering because like he withstood that without getting a concussion. So after that hit, they all loved the helmet.
Well, hey, Spider, we want to thank you for joining us on Football Letter Live. We have run out of time like we knew we would talking to you, but we'd love to have you back on the show sometime soon.
No problem. Sorry I was long-winded on that.
No, it was amazing. It was amazing. We've talked to you for hours, but our sponsors limit us to 60 minutes. So
no problem, buddy. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Spider.
I'll have to do it again. We could go on forever. You know that. So
yeah,
I'll finish the story up in the suites on Saturday to you.
All right, sounds good, buddy. Thank you, Spider.
Take care, Spider. All right. Well, hey, let's have Vince Longaro, our producer, jump onto the show here real quick and take us around campus for some of the other teams that are competing. Vince, a lot of nationally ranked teams on campus in the fall.
Yeah, that's right. 5, I believe, which I think the only athletic department in Division I to have that. So, an impressive. Again, I think I've mentioned it every week now. It's just impressive the array of competitive teams that we have here at Penn State. So, I mean, the football team obviously doing well, but there are other teams: women's soccer, field hockey, women's volleyball. I know. Men's soccer lost last night to Villanova, but they're still, as competitive as ever. So, yeah, a lot of impressive teams around campus that Penn Staters have a lot to be excited about.
Women's soccer, to bring you up to date, is at halftime in a scoreless match so far against Michigan State. Both teams come in with 7 wins and 1 loss. We'll see if our Nittany Lions can pull it out in the second half there. Yes, James, we definitely need to have Spider back on the show. Vince, if people are reading the blog, what can they expect? If they're visiting the blog, what can they expect to read?
First, just one point. I know we want to get out of here, but on women's soccer tonight, a great initiative from them. They're hosting the game is Pride Night. So a great initiative from the women's soccer team and just making sure that soccer is for everyone, which it is. So great from them. On the blog, we'll have, obviously, John is writing the preview this week, looking ahead to Northwestern. So check that out. Again, going to plug his Anthony Poindexter story. Again, I'll make sure to mention that he is not a letterman, but nonetheless, still a great story. So be sure to check that out. A lot of great stuff coming up on the blog. Through the bye week, we'll have a couple of stories on there to get you through the No Penn State Football Blues.
Absolutely. Well, hey, Vince, thanks for joining us. And thank you all for tuning in for tonight's show. To our members, thank you for being members. If you're not a member, join the Alumni Association. Check your inbox for the Saturday send of the football letter and, of course, the Monday send to get a recap of the game against Northwestern. John, as always, thank you for being the co-host extraordinaire that you are. Really appreciate all you do for the university, for the glory, and for the future. We are
Penn State.